Hello and welcome to the Hero Spouse. I am Kenda Ruth, here to answer your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. Thank you for coming. So, to get started, today, Stand Up and Thrive, my membership for Left Behind and Forward Moving Spouses, has opened. My membership includes Detach and Thrive, which is an online course embedded into the membership, and the membership you can meet on Zoom 4 times a week. We have two 30 to 60-minute class support group meetings, which we meet with, and two weekly 2 hour meetings. And it is a small membership. Sometimes you might even get just 1 to 2 people in the meeting, so you might have a lot of personal time with me. Although it would be awesome if we can grow even bigger. So if you are interested in that, it has just opened, and I am going to put a link. I still haven't figured out how to do that on YouTube unless I do it later, but I'm going to go on the Facebook group and put a link in. I'm also going to go into Facebook and YouTube and make sure everything is working. So give me a moment while I do that. Okay. And welcome. Okay, let me put my volume on so I don't get feedback. Okay, good. We're working. Okay, good. And let me put that into, find where I can put it in the chat somewhere. And you can find the link in multiple places as well. Let me get it going. Hold on. Here we go. And the link is up. And if you have any problems hearing me, let me know. You can ask questions in the comments. I will be reading them. I'll have to squeeze in and get a little closer because I'm a little far away. And right now we have 6 questions that I have printed out because that's what it will take to go through about 6 questions for this hour. I have a couple that will be left over for next time. I will be going live. I'm planning to on Monday and then next Thursday as well. Stand Up and Thrive is open for a week. So it closes next Thursday, October 10th at 9 p.m. Pacific. And so I try to go do a Facebook Live mid-launch Monday, same time, 11 a.m. as now, and next Thursday, same time. So please keep submitting so that we can have enough questions to go through all of those. And after that, I will resume the other schedule of 3 questions per week that I stream out that are pre-recorded. Okay, our first question today is from Tracy. Tracy is a left behind and forward moving spouse with a bomb drop of October 15th, 2023. She has a date of marriage of 1996, and she's not familiar with either contact types or energy levels. She says, my husband left last year after I cheated. He met a woman before I cheated and had been talking to her about our problems. I found texts between them in October. I've been standing this whole time. He hasn't fully moved all of his stuff out of our house, but he does rent a home with her. How do I know if this is a midlife crisis or just he's deciding to leave our marriage? Do I continue to wait? And what can I do to bring him back? So I can't tell you either if it's a midlife crisis because I don't have the information. What I can tell you to do, Tracy, is take the midlife crisis quiz. So if you go to the main website, and that is midlifecrisismarriageadvocate.com, or you can go to heroespouse.com. When you go on there, it will pop up. And if you go to any of the questions, the Q&A questions, the bottom description does include the link to this, but it will pop up. I'm doing it now so I can make sure. There will be a pop-up, one of those little bars that pops down kind of at the top. and it covers the menu, which is really annoying. And it says, how can I tell if my spouse is having a midlife crisis? And then the little button says, take the quiz. And just click on that little button and the quiz box will pop up. And you can go through, is your spouse having a midlife crisis quiz? So take that. Now, one of the things that I think might go on with some people, and I'm not saying this to Tracy, I'm saying this to everybody, especially those who are newbies. And by newbies in this, I mean newbies, not new to the Facebook page, me, or the forum, but your bomb drop was recent. You just came to this. Not newbies, but your bomb drop was a long time ago. You just found me. If this is a new thing for you, you might not see everything yet. And so some people might say, oh, he came out borderline. Well, things are still trickling in. And so in 3 weeks, in 6 weeks, in 2 months, you might have more information. And the next time you take it, it might not be borderline. So I want you to take that into consideration as well if you are really raw new. Okay. So first thing, you cheated, but at the same time you were cheating, he was already starting to cheat also. So you were both kind of stepping out. So your cheating, we're not going to say it has anything to do with his cheating. It's that clearly there were problems within the marriage and both of you were making poor choices, right? You caught on, didn't you? So Tracy, you caught on. I'm going to assume that you stopped. The next thing I would say, you found text between them in October. You haven't said what you did to make any amends. And some of that could be that he hasn't done anything to open the door for you to be able to make amends. So what can you do on your own, even when he's closed the door? In other words, how do you make amends when there's no one to make amends to anymore? I don't know, but maybe 12-steppers might know how you do that when, like, how do you make amends to your father after your father is gone? How do you get closure from those things? I don't have answers, but there maybe a 12-step program might have some answers to that because they probably get that question a lot. Because you still have some things to apologize for, and I'm going to assume you have done some of that, and that he's, well, that's too late, it's too little, too late, all of that. But you still do your due diligence, okay? And you need to find out what happened and in you to make you make poor choices. He hasn't fully moved out of his stuff. That's normal. He's running with her. Do you know it? So you go, you take the quiz. Do you continue to wait? So for everyone who says that, uses that word wait, I say no. Standing isn't still. I also say being is still. So you become calm inside. You become, that's part of detachment. But standing isn't still. Life moves in a forward direction. But that doesn't mean you're not standing. So it's just that it's not waiting. Because when we use that word waiting, it has the connotation of we're putting our life on hold. So I know what you mean by waiting, but let's look at our language, because language is important. Because when we use a certain language, we put a certain behavior with it. And waiting is going to be passive. Waiting might have a victim mindset in this context. And we don't want you to have that. Because waiting is sitting by the telephone, twiddling our thumbs, or not doing anything, not moving forward with our lives, just being stagnant. And that's exactly what you're not going to do. Okay. But that doesn't mean you don't have to stand for your marriage. You stand for your marriage, but part of standing for your marriage is healing. The biggest part of healing, the most important thing for healing, the most important tool is detachment. You detach. You become emotionally stable. And maybe you were emotionally stable prior to this, although you chose an affair, so there were some things going on. But even people who are emotionally stable prior to this, they get knocked off kilter, okay? And so we still need to do a lot of healing. This is a big shock that we go through, and we need to come back into ourselves. So therapy is a very good thing. I am not against counseling, even marriage counseling, although it doesn't work with an MLC, or it doesn't work when someone is not willing to do the work. But I think therapy is great for us, just to have someone to go talk to have someone, and find someone who is going to support you being a stander, Even if you choose not to, you want someone who's going to support your choices unless you are in danger. If you are in danger, in other words, you have come from a physically abusive, volatile, violent marriage, sexual abuse, any of that, I want somebody to stand up for you. But even then, social workers who deal with abuse situations, then they know they have to work within what that person is going to work with. And they accept when the person says, no, you can't help me, I'm not leaving my spouse. We still work with that person. So you want a counselor who is going to accept your choices and help guide you through them. And maybe your counselor will help guide you to another choice someday, or not, but they support you. Because you know what? Reconciliation does come after infidelity, after midlife crisis. What can you do to bring him back? You heal. Because the things we do, usually when we ask, what can I do to bring him back? And that's one of the common questions we get. That's often the last sentence that people ask on these is, you're often asking me for specific things that you can do in communion with them that will help change their mind. But that's not how it works. The way you actually bring them back, it's really scary, is by not doing it. In other words, it's by letting them go. It's by giving them the freedom and by not resisting their urge to run. When they do it, you say, I'll miss you while you're gone. You don't say, well, good riddance, jackass. I mean, you might feel that way, but you say, I will miss you while you're gone. And you root that tone in empathy because you will miss them while they're gone. You don't let them know that you're missing them as a puddle on the floor and that you're anxious about it and that you're constantly wondering and you're analyzing. Don't let them know those things. That's normal to go through that, but don't let them know. You heal. You become stable. For one, a marriage, a healthy, stable marriage is made by two healthy, stable people. And so they often will still return broken. They can have you broken too. So you have to get a life. You become an attractive force. Yeah, you were an attractive force before, but now you have been left and you're kind of a puddle on the floor. And it's not to say that you're a sorry sack, but they have got to go off and figure themselves out. And you've got to pull yourself back up. You've got to get your independence, become empowered again, and say, you know what? I don't need you, but you know what? I do want you. And I don't want what you are now. I am not standing for my marriage for the monster. I'm not standing for the MLC, or I'm not standing for this freaky person that you've become. But I'm standing for what I know you can become. I'm standing not only for what you were, but I know what you can grow into. And so it's not something you do to bring them back. It's a faith that you become your best self and you allow them to go through their crisis, their journey, and give them the freedom. You don't hover. You're not a helicopter spouse. You don't smother mother. You don't control, because that is what they're going to resist. Those sort of pressure activities. That is what they are running from. And that's midlife crisis or not. So one of the themes around midlife crisis is control. So the key words that'll go with control that mean that: freedom, space, control. I'm calling the shots now. Things where they want to be choosing their life and they have felt they haven't been. Even if that's not the case, you might not have been a controller. Chuck never blamed me as being controlling. But that doesn't mean you haven't felt that. Maybe life was chosen for you. Maybe you were still the type, or your spouse was the type, who did everything they were supposed to. So it's not about you. Their crisis is not about you. Their crisis is about everything that has built up from childhood to now. And maybe they were the good kid who did everything they were supposed to. Dad said, you should major in this in college because this is a good job. That it will give you a good job. You shouldn't do art, even though that's your passion. and you're even good at it, but you should do business, or you have to follow me into the business. That's what you're supposed to do. And so some people do what they're supposed to do, and then they marry the right person. Maybe you are the right person for them, but maybe for their parents. Or now they're claiming, well, your parents liked my parents like you, so you must be the right person, and that's bad. I don't know. Or maybe they didn't like you, and they rebelled against that. But then you had 2.3 kids and a white picket fence with a little cute dog. You do what you're supposed to. You follow, and you don't color outside the lines. Some of them are that. There's also the other one, which is a rebel. Those are two different types. But they come to this point in life where that's not working for them. So you don't bring him back. They have to figure that out for themselves. You do it by working on yourself, and they are going to be watching that. Okay? So, Tracy, I want you to have confidence in that, especially, didn't you say, well, he hasn't moved his stuff out. And so he has a reason to come. He has reason, even if that's just to come get stuff. Okay? So have confidence and minimum contact, not zero contact for right now. Okay? Because I don't know enough about your situation to make specific advice on what needs to go on with the contact. Okay? Okay, I'm going to move on to number 2. And we have, let me get back into here. For number 2, we have Nick. Nick has a bomb drop of February 1st, 2020, and a date of marriage of 2011. He has a boomerang who is a low energy wallower. So Nick says, I spoke to you last a few weeks ago. It was the last Facebook Live, I think, was the last one. And I was planning to halt spending time with my wife as we had hit a plateau. In the last 4 weeks, now the language is a little confusing, but she started to lit up with the OM. So I'm thinking she's gone back a little bit, more frequent contact with him. As she said she would, and contacts me and manifests way to spend time with me more than ever. I just wasn't sure what she started lit up. I didn't know if lit up with the OM. More than she even, just what I know about the situation, going back to him a little bit, and because last time she was still having contact with him. Sometimes at her apartment she would hide him, okay, but saying they're just friends. She even asked for the last 2 years, in each of these, it's continuing to say the divorce is almost final. Okay, so that's another little piece to add. She even asked to join me on holiday midway through a couple of weeks ago. The OM is gone, and I'm now unsure what to do. I did tell her on holiday, as she brought it up, that I am not after anything and platonic with her. So I took it to say I'm not after anything platonic with her. But it said after anything, so I wasn't sure. Okay. I'm now unsure if okay. And she was super mad, but apart from that, as she's been engaging and connecting, I'm now unsure if I should I put distance between us or not, given that the OM is gone, or that continues to see, or should I continue to see her? There are lots of mixed signals, and there's testing going around from her. Thoughts? Okay. So how do you know he's gone? I really am concerned about that because of the hiding and things like that. Okay. Now I wasn't really clear on, she was mad that you said you do not want a platonic relationship. In other words, we talked about the phrase, you didn't tell you're an appropriate spouse last time. And that's very specific about marriage spouse. And so was it an understanding of, I only want to be with you in a marital context? Was it that, and was she upset with that? And that might be upsetting to her. And you can be honest with her, or you can take it slowly and lightly. But I just wasn't sure, okay? Because I want this to go slow but firm with her, because she needs strong boundaries from you. And I know you have this strong, you're major on standing, but you also have this really strong desire to get back with her. to the point it feels pining. And she seems the same way sometimes from the way I get from you. And yet I really want her to have these boundaries because she tries to come through and she tries to break through. And I want her to see you being firm, strong. Remember, lighthouses don't move. And sometimes I think you would move a little bit too much toward her in this. And so when you're asking about having contact and how much with her, I think that you go on the err on the side of too much contact with her. If you were given a choice of how many times per month or week or whatever, you would always err too much because you want it, right? And so I want you to step that back. Remember what I said about those boundaries. And if she is seeing him, if she is seeing him, you find out he's there at all, I cannot have you in my life at all. You have to figure out kid contact because you have to cut her off to no contact while he's in her life. And you show it as an exit clause because the exit clause is you're doing it because you want to save your marriage, really, for you. You don't have to say that to her. But until you choose to be an appropriate, and you don't have to say spouse, you can choose until you chose to show an appropriate respect for me. And while he's in your life, that is disrespectful to me. And I will not have any form of a relationship with you other than the most minimal co-parenting we can. And what that means with what I mean by minimal co-parenting, and I mean you saying what I mean to her, is you need to have kid exchanges, like if the kids are old enough to go out on their own to the car. If you can have some sort of I know that some courts have some sort of online scheduler where you can both have access to the schedule. I want minimal contact until she chooses to not have him in her life, because this is a person, this alienator has cheated on her multiple times. He's gone back and forth to, I believe, his ex-wife or ex-girlfriend. He has just strung her along for the past 3 to 4 years. And he has been her play toy. She has been his play toy, and she has just let this happen. This kind of form of abuse. And then she just keeps coming to you. And she needs somebody who's stable and strong, but not quite as eager as you have been. She would need somebody who wants her, but also says, but I can't have you. When you have to be strong also. We have to have 2 strong people. I can't be that. You can't be strong for her. You can't be her strength, in other words. You have to be strong together. Both of you strong. And that's my concern at this point. So it's not that I'm saying, should you put, yes, you should put a little bit more distance between her. I'm not saying never have contact unless you find out or know that she is seeing him at all. And then, is there ever a point where she is willing to go to counseling? Because I think she's still saying the divorce is almost final. You didn't say it in this one, but I think you said it in the last one, that the divorce is almost final again. And where are we going with this? You keep coming around here. We could just put this thing on hold. You could always start this filing thing again later. And if we put it on hold, we don't reverse it, so we don't backtrack and go backwards. But we put it on hold, so we pause it at this, freeze it where it's at. I don't know if that's possible or not. Then, and pick it up right where it left off. Might default to another state after a certain time. Can we just pause it for right now? Get some therapy, both of you. And look into EFT, emotionally focused therapy. I don't know that she's open for any of that at this point, but I think it would be beneficial. Or you can couch therapy as something for family, co-parenting, and what we're doing, and we're good together. But she has him in her life, and none of that is going to work while he is there. She needs personal therapy, really. And I think both of you do. I think both of you would benefit from getting some personal therapy and finding some personal power within so that you can be strong for yourselves, because we're not strong for each other if we're not first strong for ourselves. Okay? And so I don't know if I'm being super clear, because what I really want is, yes, you can have some contact, but you're always, I think, Nick, you're always erring on too much contact for your situation. So everyone listening, it is specific to each situation. The more I know about a situation. And Nick has been asking questions since 2021. Okay. And so I've gone back and looked at those. And, you know, there's a little bit too much of, you want it so badly to the point that we have to kind of detach from that. You're attached to the agenda. Okay. So I'm going to look at the question that's up here. So hold on a sec. Okay, my husband left me 3 weeks ago. He put me out of my house and the country we were living in. I'm not okay. I can't stop crying and asking why. Yeah, I'm so sorry. And he left 3 weeks ago and he put you out of your house and your country. Do you have somewhere to go? Is the first question I would ask you, because I'm so sorry. Do you have family? Do you have somewhere to go? And what about, do you have children with you? Do you, right now, in the shock and period, rather than focusing on midlife crisis right now, for you, I want you to have somewhere to go, and I want you to have resources that are physical people that can help you and just pick you up right now from the shock that you're going through. Get you to a place where you have shelter, food, all of that, and a place where you can just calm down and breathe a little bit. Okay, it's just because right now when you can't stop crying, and when you're in a panic, your breaths are really short, and it increases your panic. It just makes it more panic, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it just cycles, and it makes it worse and worse and worse. And I just want you to slow it down. Take deep breaths. And you're going to need to do that with somebody who can care about you and love you. So instead of focusing on the crisis right now and what's wrong with him, I know that's really hard. I want you to can you find anybody to take care of you for a little bit? That's the first step. Once you get some deep breaths in, then you can maybe get some other pieces answered. And if you have looked at Understanding Midlife Crisis, if you have signed up for that, you can go in and look at it. That's fine. Go in. But the first priority is get yourself taken care of. Okay. Okay, I am going to go on to, oh my goodness, we're at 30 minutes. Number 3, this is why we only get 6 in. We have Michelle. Michelle has a bomb drop of July 6th, 2024. So this is a very new situation. And a date of marriage of 2005. She has a vanisher who is a low energy wallower. And we'll see that, how we talk about vanishers with this soon. But as I recall from my first reading of this, so far, the trend lines are vanisher, even though we wouldn't usually say vanisher this early. She says, my husband had been under a lot of stress at work, and then he had some ED issues in the bedroom, and then finally another health scare. We argued about him going to the ER, and he shut down. He left the house after 5 days, and he didn't return. He won't communicate with me other than to say never to talk to me again, and then he filed for divorce. Is this normal? It seems insane. That's pretty much it. I know you want me to say more than no, it is not normal. And I agree, it seems insane. So let's expand on just the no. I'm going to validate for you. It is not normal. It might be MLC normal. And when I say MLC normal, there's a spectrum. You're not going to find all the MLCers doing that. Okay. But vanishers. And we don't know that he's a vanisher. Okay. But you were right. Most people who put vanisher in here and their bomb drop was 2 months ago, they've had a bit of communication. Okay. And I tell them, why do you think this is a vanisher? If you have had one communication in 2 months, I still call it a boomerang, because I wait till, and you need to have a longer situation. I usually wait a year before I really say, okay, yeah, you've got this kind. But you're right so far. but he could change that. It could change. So, but for now, trend line as it is, given the severity of what you just described, you have a vanisher. And so there's a lot that we don't have answers to regarding vanishers. So you might go to the midlife crisis quiz and like, well, I don't know, because he's gone. And you might not have noticed those things beforehand. Other than that, you know, he had a lot of stress and ED issues and another health scare. And health scares can be triggers. Okay. And so can work stress, things like that. And what is his thing about the ER? That was part of the health scare. And he didn't want to go to the emergency room or just a clinic. And then he left. And most of them also don't file for divorce that quickly. Sure, some do. Mine filed very quickly, but not as quickly as yours, I'm going to assume. Mine talked to the lawyers very quickly. I think it was like a Friday. And then on a Monday, he said, I called and told him, I gave the retainer on Friday, but I told him to stop, but not to give me the retainer back, because I would come in a few months and probably start it up again. But basically that pause I asked for in the last question, we'll just put it on a pause for right now. Slow the process down. And I knew that meant it really was going to get you started again. I did know that. And then he didn't wait the whole 3 months. Most don't even did that. And that was pressure from the alienator in my situation. So filing for divorce, absolutely. I mean, seriously, I can't tell you what's going on in his head because he's a vanisher. He hasn't let you know. So I want you to look at what kind of traumas did he have growing up? What instigated this? Not just the triggers, but the deep root traumas. Why is he so afraid of the ER? Why is he afraid of doctors? Why is he afraid of what scares him about his medical problems? Who died in his past of what causes? At what age? In other words, at the age he's at now? Because sometimes that's a thing. So is he getting triggered because dad died of this specific condition at the same age he's about to hit? That can be a big deal for some. They hit it. And maybe sometimes it's subconscious, sometimes it's not. ED, well, that's right there. And then the additional stress. And what else was going on? Trauma background, higher trauma, lower resiliency. So those are the things to look at. Other than that, vanisher, what can you do? To communicate with him. He won't communicate and never talk to me again. Well, what kind of divorce are you going to be filing? I mean, do the two of you ever show up for that together or not? Do you have to go to court, or is there going to be mediation? I know they try to get into mediation rather than court. And in mediation, and remember, we didn't get that far. Chuck filed for divorce, but then very quickly he also stopped it. We stopped it together. And then he proceeded with his midlife crisis for the next few years without ever going to court. I just got lucky. Okay. So I don't have the court experience, and I'm glad. I'm glad I don't have it, at least right now. Okay. But so mediation, I know some people don't show up. Is it like you're a no-show and it's bad? Or they can have somebody show up in their place, their representative, their lawyer. So you might have some form of communication with him at those points. You have to be really careful at those, though. You show up in your business, but your empathy. So, in other words, you're not cold business. You're cordial, but not pressuring and crying. And why are we doing this? I just don't get it. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, I agree with that part. But you're grace. You be strong. And you set boundaries. You are there to protect yourself. But you be grace. And if he's going to be mean and monster at you and say you don't get these things, make it a financial thing and try and give you nothing, how am I supposed to do that? He writes you a number across the table about what you'll get, and the number is 000 or something piddly. How am I supposed to do that? Put it back in his court, because that's not reasonable. These things are going to be reasonable. That's what mediation is for. That's the kind of communication you are in now. Sucks, I know. I'm sorry. Okay. And I'm hoping it doesn't go to that. As a vanisher, he could change that. And you can still, if you know where he's at, you can send things and you can say, I'm really sorry, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work. He's very angry, and that doesn't mean it's your fault. So don't take responsibility for something that's not your fault. Okay. Okay, I'm going to move on to number 4. Number 4, we have an anonymous female left behind and forward moving spouse. She has a bomb drop of October 21st, 2021, and a date of marriage of 2010. She has an at-home MLC, but he did just move. Says at home, but he had just moved out a little bit, maybe a couple weeks right before this was sent, and she has a low energy wallower. And she says, my MLCer was an at-home wallower for 3 years until I recently kicked him out after he confessed to a 3-year affair that had been going on since the beginning. I don't really know what contact type he is now, because when you have an at-home, we put it at home. He's a boomerang, at least, because of that first thing. It's new, the at-home, and suddenly not being at home. So he's going to be at least a boomerang. And here's why. He is frequently at the house. Right there, your boomerang. Clinging. Anyone who's clinging, that is an attribute that we add on. You could be a clinging off and on, but that's rare. But clinging is about neediness. So frequently at the house, just that word frequent, boomerang. Okay. He's frequently at the house for the children, his business, and chores, but I don't know whether it has something to do with me. First thing, it does, but it doesn't matter, because the contact type boomerang, it's not about whether it is about you. That's where the clinging attribute comes in. The boomerang, it's about frequency because it's about opportunity. If he's around you, he has the opportunity to see you, to see your healing and detachment, and you're being empowered, and you're gray rocking him and not being attentive to him, and that you have a life and that he is not the center of it, that sort of thing. So they don't have to be coming there for you. It's great if they are. It shows clinging tendencies more. Momentarily, he's been living with the alienator, but now here's what concerns me. He will be moving back in as soon as I find a rental, which is hopefully quickly, as his permanent presence on the weekends is draining for me, and since I'm taking care of the kids on my own, I can't do this much longer. In the past 3 years, he cycled 3 times with a lot of verbal abuse and gaslighting, and then now, after a few days, weeks, and months, he's coming closer to me again. What am I to expect now for this 4th time, now that the affair is in the open? Right now? Well, first thing, it is new, because the affair is in the open, because he is living with her, because some of the other details are because he moved in with somebody who has children, and whose children had been, and I think not at this time, but last year, had been good friends with your children. So and none of the children knew it. And suddenly, from the alienator's children's perspective, my friends, and they weren't best friends anymore, but I think my friend's dad is suddenly living with us. Ew. Now they know. And for your kids, dad used them as part of the betrayal, used their outings to meet up with the alienator, and they didn't know it. So they are feeling extra betrayed. So we don't know, because this is new part of the situation is new. And now you say he's going to be moving back in and you're going to find a rental. So here's my concerns and confusions. I know about him moving back in because technically that the place you're living is not yours, and it is his, but it is not a community property. It is his company. So, but are the kids going to be going with you? That's my concern. Okay. Because when I first read this, and then I had to remember what situation we were talking about, I was like, why would you leave? But I'm going to be assuming, you said you didn't, you had some power and he couldn't kick you out. But if you're leaving because of that it's not yours and it's the company, I understand that. I wish it didn't have to be that way. But I'm concerned about the kids. Okay, because you're not seeing that. Because you're taking care of the kids on your own. You can't do this much longer. I want to make sure that they are, I don't want them left to be with him, especially given that they feel extremely betrayed. So we can talk about it later as well. Okay. There's a meeting later. Okay, this afternoon. In the past years, he cycles 3 times. Yes, you are going to see, and especially he's moving back in. He's getting you out. Didn't he kick you out? Didn't he force you out and the kids a couple years ago? He did. He actually forced you out. Was it for like 2 weeks or something? Oh, which is, they don't usually force you and your children out. And then you came back, and I can't. So he might feel really empowered that he is getting you out, which isn't meaning what you expect now is for monster. He's not going to be pretty, okay? And that doesn't mean he's not going to cycle. But when he does cycle to nice, don't trust nice either. There's something called charming monster. That's when, oh, the mean monster didn't get me what I wanted, so now I have to be charming to get what I want. So I want you to be very wary, okay? And, we can talk about it later in more detail, okay? Because that's my concern is what's going on there. And we can talk about what more we can expect, and you can give me some more details, okay? So I'm going to go on to number 5. And, yep, we got 17 minutes, so that's good. Number 5, we have Chris. Chris is a male left behind for a moving spouse with a bomb drop that is probably not really 1988. So it says March 30th, but it says 1988. So most likely this year or last year, but I'm not sure which. So it says date of marriage is 2013. He is unfamiliar with both contact types and energy levels, which does mean new, probably newer. And I think I saw you come in on when I approved you on the Facebook. So I'm thinking bomb drop of 2024. He says today is my 11th anniversary, and this was submitted about 2 or 3 days ago. Okay. My wife and I are now separated with a pending divorce, which has been filed. My wife, who is 38, for several years, she's resented my mother and asked not to have contact with either of my parents, and she hasn't had contact for about 3 years. It got to the point where I kicked my family out of our lives, my kids and our lives, for a little over a year for her because she wanted to leave because of my mother. Now, due to my mistakes, she wants a divorce. She doesn't even want to try counseling. Any clue what's going on or what I can do? Okay, so not really, actually. I don't have a clue because I didn't have a great mother-in-law. I didn't, she didn't cover, she only lived a mile from me and we always went to her house. She didn't come to mine. But I wouldn't have kicked her out of my life, but I could see wanting to. But here's the other thing is, did she expect you to kick your mother out of your life as well? And that would depend. I mean, let's say, if your mother or your father were sexual abusers, or the house was dangerous, let's say they're hoarders, or there's serious violence, or they are, we went to visit my dad. It was one of our last visits because he had cancer and we knew we were going to say goodbye. And when we got there, my stepmother had just walked out the door and she wasn't a pleasant woman, and she didn't say anything. And we're all in the car. I was like, what's going on? We got in the house and everyone's kind of sitting stoic. Turned out somebody they had bought a house together with my stepmother's brother. It was creepy. And he was showing off his guns. This was like right as we'd been driving up, and the gun went off. right into the bathtub, thank goodness, and nobody got hurt. Now they were all blaming my stepsister's husband who had been with them. And he's like, no, they had that gun locked and loaded. I didn't know. Well, yeah. Oh, I know how to manage a gun. And I don't, but they do. And we walked into this. My dad carried a gun into a birthday party at my house. I don't want guns at my house. Sorry for those of you who do. I just don't. You know, Chuck has a gun safe. Keep him there. But my dad walked in many years ago before I had kids, but we had my friend Jen's kids sitting in the hot tub with me. And Jen's kids are in the hot tub, and right above the hot tub, he pulls out, he's just emptying his pockets and pulls out a gun and puts it in the table. I puts that on the table right above them. I'm like, get that thing out of there. He's like, oh. He was just casually. I mean, he was just open carrying everywhere. And so to me, that would not be a safe situation because I know my dad and I know some people aren't safe with their guns. And my stepmother's brother was one of them. I mean, he was just too crazy. They were the crazy, obsessed conspiracy, always thinking there is so much crime, and crime kept getting reported. And so they all started carrying. They locked the doors while they were sitting in the house, and they were all carrying guns around. I doubt my stepmother was. But they said they were carrying their guns on them in the house because they were so scared. They lived in a small town that I don't think had high crime. But the news was reporting the crimes more. Sometimes the media reports things. And so I could see in that situation, like, you know what? The people, I love my dad. I'm not unfond of my stepmother, but she was difficult. But I could see not always wanting to go over there because it wasn't safe. So was it a safe environment? Because each person needs to manage their family. And it's not appropriate unless it really is unsafe, abusive, certain things. To say, hey, you know what? Not only do I not want to see your parents, but you can't either. So it should be fine for her to say, you know what? And you need to be supportive of it. So it sounds to me like you were supportive of it because she resented your mother. Now, the next question I have though is, was her resenting of your mother valid? Did you bring your mother into your relationship too much? Or did your mother overstep boundaries and you didn't have good boundaries to say, Mom, hey, you need to step back? So was there a little bit too much where you're mama's boy? Okay. And your wife got tired of that. So was your wife's resentment understandable and valid? Or was your wife having a problem where there really wasn't one? In other words, who's the one with the real problem? And I can't tell from here. Okay. It's great that you followed your wife in this, except that you said you kicked your family out. You kicked your family out. And so I felt for your poor family because you didn't say whether your family actually did anything wrong. And that's the thing is, you know, there's resentment, but you don't say why any of this is going on. And so I can't tell you if it's a midlife crisis. It could just be family dynamics. Okay. She wanted to leave due to my mother, due to your mistakes. So I don't even know what mistakes they are. You took your wife's side. That's actually a good thing. Man, you know, I remember when my mother-in-law and when Chuck finally took my side in one of the things where she was disrespecting me with when we were having dinner. She's like, everyone, would you like seconds? And I said, no, thank you. And she says, well, you need some anyway. Here you go. She was first criticizing me about diet and then about this. And like, now that I should have more, but then I shouldn't. And then I should, and then plopped it on my plate. And I was like, and Chuck laid into her. And I was like, finally. And it felt so good. And she said no. She doesn't want more. I mean, it was delicious food, but no. I had said no, thank you. And she bullied over people. So it feels really good when your spouse sits there and doesn't take the parent's side against mom wanting them to. That's my baby boy. And so that feels really good. But at the same time, was your wife's concern valid? I don't know, because you say due to your mistakes, but I don't know what they are. She doesn't want to try counseling. So I don't have a clue. Honestly, I'm sorry. I don't have a clue what's going on, but you do have a clue. Chris, you know something that's in here that why was she, what was the reason? What did she say? What words was she giving? Because, you can't say, did she just say, I resent your mom and I want you to get rid of her? There has to be more clues to that. Okay. And you did more to it. And then, or is your wife just being a spoiled brat? And I'm not thinking she is. Okay. I don't want to think that she is, but I want to give her some, a benefit of the doubt in this, because I know how mother-in-laws can be. I know how my own mother can be. She is not a good mother-in-law to Chuck, and he is not a good son-in-law to her. Those two together, bleh, they're awful to each other. Both of them are. So, in-laws can be challenging in all ways. And that's why it is your job to manage your parents. But don't give up on your parents either. It is not, unless your parents are somehow dangerous, it is not appropriate for her to tell you that you can't have a relationship with them. So you shouldn't be kicking them out. As for the kids, does she not like, oh, when they go over there, your mom gives them sweets and she does this to them and she does that to them? I mean, Chuck doesn't like that. Your mom brings them gifts that are stupid. Like, she's a grandma. I'm sorry that she got them gifts that, and then, they were just mundane, stupid. So what? The kids liked them. But, you and me too sometimes don't like clutter. She gave him a little gift that then got abandoned later. But she's a grandma. Let grandmas be grandmas. Oh, she got them all sugared up. Okay, and then the grandmas don't respect. Well, sometimes you have to talk to your mom and say, you know what? This child has ADHD. And when they come over here, you need to respect our rules, and they cannot have this kind of food. And if you cannot respect these rules, these boundaries, then we love you. And it's not that you're bad people, because they aren't. I mean, wanting to smother your, with kisses and sweets is normal. But sometimes you have to put your foot down and say, we can't come over if you're going to do that, because that's disrespectful to our rules. Or even if you are vegetarian and your parents are like, too bad, we're going to feed them meat. It's disrespectful. It doesn't matter if they don't agree with your philosophies. So yeah, you do have to look at, are they disagreeing with your philosophies? Did you marry into this kind of religion and your parents are another one? And so they're disrespecting that. Okay. So those are the things that you haven't said that I'm just going to put out there to think about. Okay. But none of that are midlife things. And it could be midlife, but there might be other things. Okay. So our last question, we have Brian. Brian has a bomb drop of October 1st, 2023, and a date of marriage of 2017. And again, he is not familiar with contact types or energy levels. He says, my spouse and I have gotten a long way since we separated in March of this year. She now says it's not you, it's me. And actually told me that she told her doctor that she was in a midlife crisis. She tells me that she's never been able to do things she liked because she married at 17. So first question I have is, did she marry you at 17 or are you in later marriage? Because first, if she married you at 17, then she's only 24. Okay. She says that she's enjoying doing things for herself finally once. She's talking to me and sharing. She says she feels guilty. She doesn't want me to hurt, she says. She wants me to enjoy life. She hasn't asked for a divorce. How should I manage her? And what can I do to guide her back? Now, remember what I said, how that's the common question that I get at the very end? What can I do to bring him back was also the very last question of number 1. Okay. And so the first piece is, you don't directly do something that is in direct actions regarding her. It's what you do to yourself, within yourself, and for yourself that eventually may turn their heads toward you and help them choose to change their mind. So it's, especially if she hasn't asked for a divorce, she says she feels guilty, she doesn't want to hurt you, she wants you to enjoy life, so you enjoy life. Because does she want to come back to you if you don't enjoy life? I mean, do you want to go back to anybody who's not enjoying life, really? So there's that. She says that she's enjoying doing things, and she's enjoying doing them for herself. Now, that thing about, she got married at 17. So I'm assuming that she's not 24 now, and that was a first marriage, okay? Also, what did that marriage entail? How long did that marriage last? Why did she get married at 17? Did she have a childhood? I mean, that's pretty young to get married these days. Maybe not 200 years ago, but now? 22 is pretty young to get married, even though many do. But 17. I was a junior in high school in 17. So that, yeah, so I can understand she needs to learn that she can be self-sufficient, that she can be independent. And she may have felt that she was always relying on somebody else for her survival. And so she needs to learn. So in other words, one of the things that we do want for our partners and our friends and everybody else is if we are hit by a bus tomorrow and we're dead, we want them to be able to survive, right? We don't want them to be so dependent that if we are gone, out of no help, I mean, we're just suddenly, bam, gone. They now can't survive at all. They just, are kicked out and living on the street because they have no skills, no money, no nothing. And that's what she's going through now. Is she's like, I have to learn to be able to do this just in case. Just so that I know that I can survive. It doesn't mean I don't want a partner, but I need to be able to be independent. And then you become interdependent. Interdependent means you can be independent, but you can partner. It's I want you, not I need you. And so you support her in that. And the two of you, you have fun together. So maybe simple things. And maybe this isn't, because I know plenty of people where the woman drives, and yet it always still seemed to be a situation where they seem to have traditional gender roles, except the woman drives and the man doesn't have a driver's license. I don't know if my aunt and uncle I always thought of them as traditional gender roles, but they were both eccentric. Let's just use that word. But he didn't drive. I think he kind of knew how. And so she was always the one driving. But not so much does she drive, but when you two of you get in a car, who does the driving? Maybe it's both. Maybe it's, back and forth, one of you or the other. So usually when Chuck and I are going somewhere with the kids, he usually drives the truck, I drive the car. So usually I drive the car and he sits in the passenger side while we have the kids if we're going somewhere together. But sometimes he drives. Sometimes it'll just depend. When we went to the birthday party the other day, he said, I'm really tired, so I want you to drive. I was hoping he would drive because I thought, I want to be really holding that cake that I made. I think I'm going to put a picture out on the next email. I made birthday cake with a dragon that I forgot to put arms on it. Made my first dragon sculpture without arms. So, but he drove home, I think. I can't remember why. There was a reason why. Oh, we were going somewhere and I didn't know where we were going. We were picking up Peyton at it. But I usually drive the car because it's my car. So, and our gender roles, I don't know if he thinks of that, but he's not an alpha, and I'm much more alpha than he is. So, we always go back and forth. But I know there are somewhere, it's almost always the man driving, unless there is some sort of a reason. Okay, I'm taking him to the hospital, so I'm going to do the driving today. That's a little thing. And for some, it doesn't matter. It's just either way. But what things where she felt in your relationship that she was being dependent or taken care of? Also, what is the age difference between the two of you? Are you close to her age, or did you feel even there was even that? So she needs to feel that. So here's how it's not that you're going to manage her. Notice how you say, how should I manage her? That right there, that's a clue. You shouldn't. That's kind of getting to her point. She should manage her. And, what can you do to guide her back? What can you do to influence her to come back? You can let her manage herself. You can show her that you are good with her managing herself. You can encourage her independence. Do all of those and applaud it. Because two independent people can be married to each other. I hope they are. Two independent, because there's inter. It's not codependent. Codependence is a pathology. Codependence is a neediness, when you need each other and you get stuck on this triangle of persecutor and victim, and you don't want that. There's actually 3 roles on it. I'm only thinking of 2 at the moment. But you don't want that. You don't want codependence. You want interdependence, which is part of being independent, because it means that you can live together and you can live apart. You can survive together. You can survive apart. You want her to be able to survive on her own. Okay? That's really important, and it's very important to her. She's enjoying that. She got married young. She needs to know that she can survive. It's important to her. And so what you do is you don't manage her. You let her manage herself. She's a big girl. She's an adult. She's a woman, not a big girl. She's a woman. And you treat her as a woman rather than as a little girl. Okay? You don't get to be her sugar daddy. You can be her husband if she lets you. She gets to make the choice. And you let her make that choice. That's part of it. Yes, thank you. It is rescuer. Yep, that's it. It's rescuer, persecutor, victim. So, and right now, you, Brian, are rescuer role. Okay? And you don't want that. Okay? I mean, you might want it, but she doesn't. Okay? She's going to rescue herself. Okay. Okay. So that is it for today. Send in more questions, because 6 is a really great amount. I need more for Monday. I need more for next Thursday. Stand Up and Thrive is open, and it will be open until next Thursday. So I hope to see you all Monday. I hope to see you all on Detach and Thrive, or Stand Up and Thrive if I can. And I will see you in a few days. Okay. Bye-bye.